Welcome to UnCeiling You, the podcast that empowers ambitious women to take radical responsibility and break through barriers. I'm Dr. Natalie Luke, your host. Before we dive in, take a moment to download this episode so you can listen anytime, anywhere. If you love what you hear, please share it with your friends or social media network. Your support helps us grow. For those of you ready to take your ambition even further, consider joining our membership community. Imagine what you could achieve with the right tools and network. Our membership unlocks early episodes, practical workshops, and direct connections with inspiring leaders. Head to the show notes to join, download, or share. Now, let's get started with unsealing your potential and watch the ripple effect unfold. Julia Frense Maria's inspiring journey begins here. Imagine stepping into a role that feels like a stretch, one that challenges you to grow in ways you never expected. Julia Frense Maria is no stranger to this experience. In this episode, Julia shares her inspiring journey of embracing challenges, navigating imposter syndrome, and aligning her career with her values and passions. Whether you're just starting out, facing a career pivot, or looking to mentor others, Julia's story is a must-hear for ambitious women everywhere. Julia describes herself as a highly motivated professional dedicated to driving growth, maximizing impact, and excelling in her field. With over a decade of experience in procurement and project leadership, she has mastered strategic thinking, negotiation, and delivering results on a global scale. Beyond her professional achievements, Julia is deeply committed to empowering the next generation of women and girls, volunteering her time to programs that foster confidence, leadership, and resilience. Her global upbringing, having lived on 3 continents and being fluent in German, gives her a unique perspective on collaboration, diversity, and adaptability. Julia's story is one of bold leaps, thoughtful pivots, and a passion for making a difference both in her career and her community. Her insights on resilience, values, and mentorship will leave you inspired and ready to tackle your next challenge. Her journey is a testament to the power of embracing discomfort, staying true to your values, and building meaningful connections. Lessons that resonate no matter where you are in your career. Let's dive into my conversation with Julia Frense Maria and hear her inspiring story firsthand. Hey, Julia, thank you so much for joining. I'm so happy to have you here.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
I have you as a rising star.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited.
Great. So what I'd like you to do is, if you could, take us back to a moment when you were awarded a bigger role. Maybe you felt like you weren't quite ready, but you were ready. You felt a little insecure about stepping into it. What was going through your mind? What were the specific type of experiences or breakthrough that you had to help you overcome that insecurity?
I was working in my field for a few years, and I'll preface this by saying, I'm only 10 years out of college. And so I've been working in sourcing and procurement for most of those 10 years, but have kind of gone through different industries. And so I was working in this role for a few years, and I received this message on LinkedIn, and it was a recruiter asking me, if I was interested in speaking with them. And, they had a role, and the role was a few levels above my current role. And I thought, me for that role? Sure, why not? And so I went through the interview process. I interviewed on the phone. They flew me out there. I got to meet all the different leaders, and lo and behold, I got a call the following Monday. I also met with the CEO, and they said to me, hey, we want you for the role. And I remember the feeling of such excitement, but also such like, here we go. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little scared. But, in terms of like feeling insecure about jumping into a bigger role or a new role, I think it takes a while to kind of work through that insecurity. I think there's no aha moment where you're like, okay, I got this, I'm good. I think it's gradual. It's as you're kind of learning to trust yourself and face those challenges, it took a while, right? And I finally, though, I overcame the insecurity. I got to meet the people. I got to feel more comfortable. It was a new city. And I think for me, the biggest takeaways with that role would be that it's okay to feel insecure. Feeling insecure doesn't mean that you're not capable. And I tried to lean more into the feelings of, okay, this is uncomfortable, but let's keep pushing forward. Let's face the challenge head on. So it was definitely a very big growing moment for me in my life, for sure.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love that you went ahead and went for it ahead of feeling like you're ready for it, because that is pushing on your comfort zone. And then also, feeling the feeling, just riding that feeling is so important. You can't push it away, the feeling. You need to just go with it.
Yeah. And you don't always feel ready, but, making the leap can help you kind of realize your potential too. So
that's perfect. And I also understand from our, previous discussions, there was a position that you were in. You entered it and you felt like it was aligned with your values and also passion, but especially your passion. And then later you discovered it wasn't aligned with your values and you made a really tough decision. Can you share a story about how you came to the realization and what it was like to make such a significant career move where you decided, hey, it's got to be both my passion and my values that align?
Yeah, that was a difficult decision for me. But looking back on it now, and they say hindsight is 2020. I'm really happy with where it led me. I think the role itself, it taught me something, right? It taught me what was important to me going forward in my career. It taught me my 3 career non-negotiables. It taught me things about myself that I didn't realize. And I think for me now, the 3 things that I always look at when I'm looking at, my next step or my roles is having a company that has a great work culture, that also has that amazing work-life balance, and also a role that's impactful. And I think part of the story there is that, if the environment doesn't feel right or if it's taking a toll on your mental health, it's time to make a change. It's time to make a pivot. And for me now, I call that the pivot moment in my career because, like I said, that allowed me to realize, okay, these are my non-negotiables. These are what I'm looking for. And so I think at first the decision was really disappointing. I remember having many conversations with my mom and thinking, oh my goodness, what's my life trajectory going to look like? Or what does this mean for my career? But now it's just allowed me to kind of focus on what I really want. And still, I'm very passionate about women empowerment, and I still take part of that with me in every role that I'm in. And it's allowed me to kind of flame the fire and have part of my passions be part of the corporations that I work for. So I think it was a pivot moment for me.
That's fantastic. And I think it's good for people to hear that, hey, something good can happen when you make that decision to follow your values and to know what your non-negotiables are. And I think having 3 non-negotiables is a good number.
Yeah, could be more, could be less, but I think there's a big thing there to be discovered, which is find out what those non-negotiables are for you because it's important.
Yeah. Just going back to the first experience that we were talking about, facing imposter syndrome, it's something that's come up quite a bit. The first episode that I air with a guest, we talk about imposter syndrome. Can you share, and you already talked a little bit about it, but can you share a time when you felt like an imposter in your role? Was there a specific project or challenge where this surfaced, and how did you navigate the situation to find your footing?
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I had imposter syndrome coming onto this podcast. I think for me, right, being 10 years out of school, I think with any new challenges and the next step up, there's always going to be that feeling of, hey, I've never been here before. And I think imposter syndrome comes up. You're going to feel that way. And especially as a woman in the corporate workplace, I often put like a lot of pressure on myself to succeed, to move up, to, climb the ladder. That pressure can lead to feelings of doubt about my skills and my knowledge. And when I think about it, I think I've had imposter syndrome in every role that I've had so far. And that's just because it's new, and I think part of that is, like I said, I'm always been in sourcing and procurement, but I'm, been in 4 different industries within that world. And each of those industries has different nuances. And so you're learning new avenues, you're learning new areas, and that too can contribute to the imposter syndrome. I would say that I definitely struggle with it, but I'm actively working to embrace it and learn from it and grow from it. And I think the longer I stay in a role or a position or with a company, the more my confidence grows and the imposter syndrome kind of fades in the background. So I think imposter syndrome can teach you a lot about your resilience and your strengths. But the reality is, and I had a woman mentor say this to me, no one knows everything. We're all on this learning journey together, and we all have to be willing to learn, make our mistakes, and keep working hard. And so whenever I feel the imposter syndrome creeping up, I kind of remind myself, hey, you've done this, this, and this, you've proven yourself, you have the qualifications, you're doing okay. And that little self-pep talk kind of makes me feel better. But I would say anytime you do something new, I feel that. At least, I don't know if everyone else does, but I do feel that way.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been in my industry for over 20 years, but always pushing myself to try new things. And definitely imposter syndrome comes up for sure. It's all about how you talk to yourself in those moments.
And really about that confidence and building that up and just reassuring yourself, hey, I got this, why not me?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the other things that really impressed me about you when we were talking is your ability to network with those around you. And networking, it could be completely intimidating, but also transformative. Can you share how building relationships with coworkers and even leaders in your department, leaders outside of your department, help you overcome barriers or find new opportunities? And is there a particular networking experience that stands out in your career?
I'm a big fan of networking. I'm also a big fan of cultivating relationships with leaders that can then turn into mentors. I had a lot of women mentors throughout my career this far, and a lot of them I still keep in touch with, and they have helped me professionally and personally. I think building relationships with people who you admire or respect or value in your field is such a great skill to have, and something that I try and teach the younger generation about. These connections have also expanded my skill set. They've allowed me to have exposure to upper leadership and created new opportunities for me. And I think there's 2 networking situations that stand out for me specifically. One is, I would say, more of like a networking mentor. I was in a role and, I was ready for my next step. And I remember speaking with a woman mentor about, I'm vocal about my aspirations. I'm vocal about taking the next step. How, what do you think? How should I communicate this? Who should I speak with? And, she really encouraged me to kind of sit my leader down and tell them, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I've done. This is where I think I'm going. They said, great timing on your part, because here's a new department that opened up and we'd love for you to go over there and kind of start it up. And so if I hadn't fostered that relationship with this leader, and the leader wasn't my boss, she was somebody else, I don't know if I would have had maybe the push necessarily, or the confidence or the idea to say, hey, wait, I could be vocal about my aspirations or what I want. And so for me, that strikes me as like a big networking positive. The other one I would say I'm a very ambitious go-getter. And so there was this company that I wanted to work for, and I found the head of development online, and I cultivated this relationship with them and spoke with them about my passion for their company and what they're doing. I kept up that relationship for over 1.5 years. I would check in every 3 months and check in to see if they had a new role open up, and if they needed any assistance or help. And lo and behold, I think my dedication and consistency paid off, because at the end of that year and a half, they told me that, hey, they had a role and it was kind of new and a little bit mixed of two. And they thought that I had the skill set for it, and I got the role. And so for me, that's why I'm so passionate about telling people networking and leadership and honest conversations are kind of what sometimes help you take that next step.
Right.
And you need women leaders to kind of show you the way sometimes.
Yeah. Well, just like you are right now to the audience. There we go.
I hope so.
Yes. And, the same thing with my career. I remember talking with a gentleman about, I really, really feel like we can take this department a little bit further if we implement these ideas. I didn't know that the person that was leading that had just turned in their resignation.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being excellent timing, and they offered me the position. So
Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So that's about taking risks, and taking risks can pay off. Making a transition between roles and industry often involves significant risk. Can you share a story, maybe different, about a time when you took a leap of faith in your career where the internal barriers you faced, what were the internal barriers that you faced, and how did that experience shape your perspective on risk and growth?
Quick break, everyone. If you're enjoying this episode, remember to download it for offline listening and share it with your friends or network. Sharing helps us reach more ambitious listeners like you. Want to take your growth to the next level? Join our membership program for just a few dollars a month and gain exclusive benefits designed to support you. Early access to episodes, bonus content, and even a say in future topics. Don't just listen, be part of the journey. If you're a woman aiming for management, but stuck in the experience trap, listen up. You're talented, ambitious, but hitting a wall. You need experience to get a management role. But how do you get that experience? Introducing UnCeiling Your Career, the book that's breaking the experience trap. Discover how to showcase your leadership potential, even without prior management experience. Transform your project skills into leadership assets and build a strategic career path. Ready to climb the ladder? Grab the book, UnCeiling Your Career, today, at any place you prefer to purchase books, and start your journey to the top.
My career has been, like I said, in sourcing and procurement across various industries. I think every time I've jumped to a different industry, there's always been some hesitancy and fear. Is this the right industry for me? What does this mean for my career? Can I ever go back to the industry that I was in previously? But despite those fears, I jumped every time. And I think because of that, I've gained more knowledge and a broader perspective and have, a more well-rounded skill set than I would have if I had just stayed in one industry. And so I think it's watching my career unfold and seeing the growth in my mindset has been a rewarding part of the process. I think I've taken a risk every time I've jumped, right? And in the past 10 years, 4 different industries. And so it's just showing me that growth happens outside of your comfort zone. And it's just brought me a whole wealth of knowledge that I wouldn't have necessarily gotten if I had stayed in one. So it's been very rewarding, and it's also been very scary, and it's also been risky, right? Every time you make a jump like that, there's some risk, but there's no reward if there's no risk.
Exactly. So if you think about the proudest moment that you've had in your career, and it was a proud moment, but it's also meaningful to you. What was that proud moment, and what internal barrier or challenge did you have to overcome to get there? And what's next for you?
All right, so I'll start with my proudest moment. My proudest moment would have to be this resourcing project I did for one of the companies I worked for. It was really large. Resourcing means we're basically taking our top selling items and getting a new manufacturer to make them. And with that, there's a lot of different pros and cons, but specifically, I was able to resource our top selling items in a different country and get a lower price, get some cost savings, and also kind of expand our vendor matrix. And that, I would say, in my career had been probably my first biggest project on that scale globally. And also the first project where I was responsible for the plan and execution and the manager and seeing it from, A to Z. And so that project, I'll always look back as the project that kind of solidified the confidence in myself. Like, hey, you know what? My skills are valuable and I've made a significant impact. And they were really all very impressed with the negotiations and the different ways of thinking about resourcing, that I remember thinking, I've got something here, and this is something that I can utilize my entire career. And I think it was the confidence that I needed in the moment that I needed to just solidify my confidence, but also reminded me of my capabilities. So always a proud moment for me. And I would say, to answer your question about what's next for me, I'm loving where I am. I work for a really wonderful company. I feel, very respected. I feel very empowered. I'm challenged. And, like I said, those career non-negotiables, they definitely come to play at my current company. And I'm exploring my passions. I'm very passionate about women empowerment and supplier diversity. And so being able to work those avenues throughout my career has been awesome. And so 10 years out, I would say, looking back, if you had told me when I graduated college that I wouldn't be in fashion anymore, I don't know if I would have believed you, but it's just such a wild ride to see all of the shifts and, different roads that I've taken, and then also throw in the pandemic in there, which has really, made some risks and transitions happen for me earlier than I would have thought. I'm happy with where my career is. I'm happy to see where it goes, and I'm ready to, climb the ladder and take my next step.
Awesome. So now let's think about any kind of advice you can give. And let's just think about this for three groups of people. The first are the women coming out of college. What advice would you want to give them? Next is the women who are not feeling so passionate about their job or that their values are not aligning. What kind of advice would you give to them? And then the third is women who are in leadership roles currently now and can help other women grow. What advice do you have for them?
Okay. So for the first one, for the women who are graduating college, what an exciting time. The world is your oyster. And I would say take this moment to just be proud of yourself for, graduating college and making the transition into your career, and just be open about what your career looks like to you. I think some people have a very narrow road. For me, fashion was it, and that was what it was going to be. But I think your career will transition and take you through many different positions. And I would just say be open to that possibility. But also don't be afraid to go after what you want. If you use your voice and cultivate relationships with leaders, you will get there as long as you work hard.
Working hard is important.
Yes, that's very important. For the women who are not so passionate or not feeling so passionate about their careers or their jobs currently, be honest with yourself. Take a step back, allow yourself some time to kind of review what makes you happy, what sparks your passion. How can you involve that in the current career that you're in? Don't be afraid to take a step back, and just regroup and then come back to, the career that you want. Right. And I don't know, it's, you'll be surprised what's out there. You'll be surprised what you find. You'll be surprised, I didn't know that was a job, or I didn't know that this existed. And I think networking allows some of those conversations to exist. And for women in leadership roles, please cultivate that mentor relationship with younger women. We need you. We need to see how you've done it. We need to get some advice and some insight, and we need your kindness and your honesty, and we need your support, as women are always looking up to the woman above us. And that goes for me as well. And I always think, okay, what did she do? And how did she do it? And what steps did she take? And how did she go around this obstacle? And so we learn from the women above us. And so just being such a bright, kind, empowering, inspiring light, and kind of cultivating that networking and mentorship is what I would say, because that's very helpful for all of us.
That's fantastic. I love having you on the show. And before we end it, I just want to give you a chance to say anything else that may be coming to you? Because usually this is when the best stuff comes out.
I would say that I have met some very wonderful women in my career who have been such a bright light for me. And I just want to empower women around me and whoever's listening to this to find those bright lights in your life who can really help you navigate and take the next step, because they're there to support you and they're there to show you the way. And sometimes you need that. And so I would say look for that, because those bright lights, they're around. You just need to tap on them.
That's fantastic. And for those that want to join the UnCeiling Zone, one of the things that we do there is we get you on a call with some of these guest speakers so that you can cultivate relationships right there with these women leaders. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for stepping on here. I hope you had some fun.
Yeah, it was great. It was my first podcast experience. So it's been
one of many, and I am sure of it. So thank you so much.
Yes. Bye, Natalie. Thank you.
Bye.
Wow. Julia, only 10 years out of college, truly schooled us with her wisdom and experiences. There's so much to unpack here, from the power of networking and knowing your non-negotiables to overcoming imposter syndrome. She shared so many actionable insights that resonate with anyone aiming to grow in their career. At this point, I'm focused on overcoming imposter syndrome, and Julia's story is a perfect example. When she was invited to interview for a higher level position, I half expected her to question herself, as I would have at her age, but she didn't. Instead, she leaned into the opportunity, faced her fears, and went for it. Her confidence and willingness to push through discomfort are inspiring. I want to encourage you to take a page from Julia's book and put your name in the hat for higher level positions, even if you don't feel entirely ready. Why not you? You're more capable than you think. In fact, research tells us that women often wait until they can check every box before pursuing a higher level position, whereas men tend to go for it when they meet just 60% of the qualifications. Julia's story serves as a powerful reminder that waiting for perfection isn't the answer. Growth happens when you step outside your comfort zone. I hope this interview inspires you to go for more, embrace discomfort, and trust in your abilities. Let Julia's journey remind you that every leap you take, even if it's intimidating, is a step toward becoming the best version of yourself. Thank you for joining me on this episode of UnCeiling You. If today's conversation inspired you, make sure to download this episode so you can revisit it anytime and subscribe to the show so you never miss a new episode. For those of you ready to take your ambition to the next level, I invite you to consider joining our membership community, where you'll get exclusive bonus content, early access to episodes, and much more. Until next time, remember, it's time to take radical responsibility for your life and unseal your potential to watch the positive ripple effect unfold.